Welcome, sister, to the new moon in Libra. She is both the peacemaker and the partner, the beloved, the friend inside of you. Ruled by Venus, the feminine planet of our solar system, she reminds us that everyone else is just you in disguise. The alchemical magic of relationship is the invitation of Libra. And the reminder that we so often need as women that every relationship starts and ends ultimately with our relationship to Source, which is our relationship to self. In the realm of Libra, we're talking relationship with self and source and beloved and friend and child and mother. But in the end, we're actually always talking about our relationship to ourself, as all our relationships are mirrors in the realm of Libra. Halfway through the zodiac, Aries starts it all off, right? And the words for Aries are I am, and we're halfway through. Of course, Aries is ruled by Mars, Libra is ruled by Venus. Mars and Venus are polar opposites. They are complementary polarities. Mars, I am. Aries, I am, that is. And Libra is we are. It is the only zodiac sign that has a phrase that is not I. But in order to have a healthy we must have a healthy and whole me. We must know who we are. We cannot be sacrificing our voice. We cannot be sacrificing our truth for another. This is the shadow of Libra, which is the people pleaser, the shapeshifter, she who feels on an unconscious level, for the most part, she must perform in order to receive love, in order to be worthy of love. Of course, this sign comes, the scales are the glyph of Libra, and this sign of polarity and balance and harmony comes at the fall equinox. We are in this moment when day and night are equal on the planet. And then just as it has every day from solstice, we've gotten 1 minute, 2 minutes, shorter days since then. And here we are halfway between the summer solstice and the winter solstice, right at the midpoint where day and night are even. Sun and moon, masculine, feminine, Mars and Venus, we are at the balance point. While nature is always shifting and changing, it is always seeking balance and harmony and homeostasis. And this balance, this polarity really references where we are as a global culture right now. We are at a point where the masculine the scales have been so tipped towards masculine culture, masculine values, that of course, like all things in the world, boop, 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 we will always return to balance. We will always return back to the center point of love. And what guides us there? Libra, connection, guides us there. Relationship guides us there. And yet, being very conscious of the shadows of Libra are imperative for this rebalancing. Now, in order to dive into the mythological foundations of Venus, this incredible planet who is reflected in so many myths around the world, who is reflected universally in every culture with some myth of the great lover goddess. So we will dive into Venus, Aphrodite, and Inanna, but we want to start with the Little Mermaid. Yeah, the Little Mermaid. So while so many of us know primarily the Disney version, I was raised with the Disney version. It was my favorite Disney movie. However, when I go and I look back at the Disney version, I am like, oh, wow. I mean, all the Disney movies, but talking about the Little Mermaid, she desires more from her life. She longs to claim her beloved Prince Eric at all costs as a creature of the sea, the oceanic intelligence and wisdom of the feminine, that is the ocean. And she's willing to do anything to get it, including sacrifice her greatest gift, her greatest goddess-given talent, skill, service to the world and her people, which is her beautiful voice, her capacity to express herself, to express what is true and what is not true for her. She sacrifices that in order to get a man. And in the patriarchal version of the Disney movie, it is hilarious because it just works out real well. It all just works out. Prince Eric falls in love with her without a voice, right? Like, women don't need to speak. It's just about their beauty. And in the end, it all works out. She gets her voice back. So if we really look underneath the messaging to our little children, yeah, like the self-sacrifice for the benefit of another and to be worthy enough to receive the love of a man is really where it's at, huh? Fortunately, we can actually trace this story back to a much older version that was most likely around for many thousands of years, originating with the Selkies in Ireland, the Mer women of Ireland. And when we look back at this history, we see in the Hans Christian Andersen version, which was really hinting at the indigenous tales of Europe, in a more modern lens, what we see actually is a very different ending. So the beautiful Ariel sacrifices her voice in order to walk on land to have a chance at her beloved. She feels oppressed and imprisoned by the world of her father under the sea. She feels that she desires a bigger life for herself as she awakens into her puberty, right? We cannot divorce Little Mermaid from the initiation of our first blood. And as she starts to first develop the longings in her heart that come with her first blood, this desire for sacred union with another, she goes to the witch, Ursula, the sea witch, Ursula, who in the Disney movie is portrayed as an evil being and traditionally would have been the wise woman crone who initiates the young woman into her first blood, teaching her how valuable it is to be a woman and this immense power and capacity that we all carry inside of our body and our womb through the sacredness of our sexuality. So in the modern world, what we see in the Disney movies is that the old woman always becomes the witch and the evil one, when in traditional societies, of course, in your ancestors' world, for 99% of human history, the older woman was the keeper of the wisdom for the tribe. She was the she was the initiatrix for the next generation of mothers, the next generation of wisdom keepers and leaders in the culture. Of course, as women grow in age, they become more and more powerful. They become more and more clear in who they are without sacrificing who we are for another, without shape-shifting or performing. We'll get into that shadow of Libra very soon. But we see in this story that the wise crone actually gets repositioned as the evil witch, sending, of course, the message that it is not okay to age, that women lose their potency and value as we become older. But when we go back to the original tale, yes, she gets her voice taken. She goes up to meet Prince Eric, but she is not chosen by him. He is already betrothed to another. So she sacrifices herself back to the sea. She can never return to who she was. She sacrificed her greatest gift, her purpose for being brought to this planet, and her truth. So she murders herself and ends up as the sea foam on the ocean. The message of this version of the story, and we can only imagine what these versions were before they were written down in the 1800s by Hans Christian Andersen. But the message, very different from the Disney message, is if you sacrifice yourself, if a woman sacrifices herself in order to receive recognition by the patriarchy, by the masculine, she is ultimately sacrificing her deepest truth, her greatest offering, and her own life, her own sacred life force. Now, the reference to sea foam, I so appreciate my teacher Camille Willemane for making this connection, is that as Little Mermaid, as Ariel becomes the sea foam, we know that the great goddess Aphrodite is born from the sea foam as a kind of 2.0 version of the feminine in the death of the patriarchy. As to really go back into the myth, Aphrodite is born from her father Uranus's phallus being chopped off, thrown into the ocean, the great womb of the feminine, and it churns the sea and creates sea foam, and from that sea foam, Aphrodite is born. Now, Aphrodite is just the Greek version of Venus. Venus is the planet that is the feminine that rules Libra. And if we go back to ancient Sumeria, we see that the original myth from which Venus and Aphrodite both arose was Inanna. And Inanna is the myth of it is literally the embodied myth of the Venus cycle. So Venus is the evening star that we can literally right now, she is the evening star. I can see her in the evening. She's that beautiful bright star on the horizon. And then she will go into the underworld, which is what indigenous societies, when a star on a planet, when we could no longer see it, and it is thought of as going into the underworld, going on shamanic vision quest. So Venus goes on her shamanic vision quest only to ultimately rise back up as the morning star now, and then to go through that full cycle. This is the story of Inanna, which is really the story of what Venus actually does in the sky. And so let's remember the goddess of love, the goddess of pleasure, the goddess of beauty, that is Venus, that is Aphrodite, that is the root of Libra, is actually an underworld goddess. It is, as all gods and goddesses are, it is a personification of the forces of nature. And Venus, by nature, the feminine by nature, goes into the underworld as a star. We can't see her. Evening, can't see her. Back in the morning star. And this cycle of Venus is a reminder that it is the nature of the feminine to need to turn inward in order to really understand, to carry the potency of the feminine, the sensuality, the sexuality, the connection with emotion, with sensation, with deep presence that is the root for healthy relationship. In the words of Brené Brown, the opposite of belonging is fitting in. The opposite of belonging is fitting in. We now have discovered that authenticity is the number one most magnetic quality of a human being. Authenticity is the number one most magnetic quality of a human being. But when Venus is not in deep relationship with Libra, when you are not, when the feminine is not in a deep relationship of devotion, caretaking, homage, honoring, and connection with self as source, then it is very easy for our nervous system to get out of balance. It is very easy to feel unsafe in our bodies. And when we feel unsafe in our bodies, generally this happens on an unconscious level. It's elevated heart rate. It is our anxiety response. And that response can manifest as fight, flight, freeze, or the most popular among women is fawn, the fawn response, people-pleasing and self-abandonment. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? This is an example of losing ourselves, losing the I in the we. Another word for this is codependent. This is where we outsource our worthiness and our value to others around us. And this is very easy to do in our culture, as everything trains us to do this. For regardless of your gender, we can think of Tom Cruise in the film Jerry Maguire, starting to be a little dated at this point, but his famous line, "You complete me." And all the women are just like, oh, so good. Yes, so beautiful. And actually, the shadow of Libra and the gifts of the partner and the peacemaker inside of us remind us that we can't actually be completed by another person. We have to be a whole person in and of ourselves in order to attract another whole person and to come together to create a sum that is greater than the parts. But if in fact we feel unworthy, half of a person, half whole, and we will attract another person who also feels half full. And the result is the drama triangle, the victim triangle. It is the endless seeking of validation in another, which doesn't benefit anyone ultimately and creates an unhealthy relationship. That, of course, is just a mirror of our relationship to ourselves. All the complexity of the people in our life are mirroring all our different facets. So if we talk about the beauty of relationship that lives in the realm of Libra, we have to talk about the shadow of relationships, which is all the ways that our wounding gets projected out onto another, and we form trauma bonds. We can be in a state of karmic reenactment in our relationships, be those friendships, partnerships, family relationships. This is why it is an ongoing healing journey of our life, and astrology and feminine mythology and sisterhood. These are all tools for us to reclaim and come to know thyself, come to know ourselves. The famous lines in the Temple of Apollo, where the great oracles of Delphi lived and brought forth the channeling of Gaia, the channeling of the earth. Know thyself. Above and beyond what anyone has to offer us, we must first know ourselves, and that includes knowing that those people around us are just elements of ourself. If we go back to Pisces, we remember that the truth of the mystic is that it's all us. It's all for us, it's all from us, it's all us. So all of our relationships are parts of ourself that those relationships that really trigger us. There are parts of ourselves we have not owned, we are not comfortable owning. There are parts of ourselves that we outsource, that we think it's not us, and we say, oh, that person, that woman's so beautiful, or oh, that man, if only I had him, when actually it is our own self, our own deep womb longing to reunite in its full truth, its full worthiness, its full value, all of the gifts of who we are. On the path of Libra, we must be really clear as the partner and the peacemaker. We must be centered in our discernment, because the peacemaker can she who seeks harmony and balance, right, which is the realm of the feminine, which is the realm of Venus, can very easily descend into the people pleaser. So peacemaker, people pleaser. Let's be clear where we are coming from, and that is the process of cultivating discernment inside of us, knowing what is medicine, what is poison. We lose our capacity for discernment when we are not dexterous with our authentic truth, when we cannot speak and use our voice as Ariel to speak our yes and speak our no. When we are not empowered by other women around us, wise elder women that we are now training to become, to teach us and guide us that we must first be in our own sacred union in order to experience sacred union with another. The realm of Hieros Gamos, or sacred union, is and has always been the realm of the lineage of the rose. It has always been the realm of Venus. And all of the goddesses that came from that star, including Inanna, the goddess Venus and Aphrodite, and she had sacred practices to prepare for sacred union, for sexual union with men, for her priestesses. So her priestesses, we're talking Inanna, Aphrodite, and Venus, her priestesses of love and sensuality, who use the gift of their bodies and their sensuality and their love to heal the war out of men. We're talking about the temple priestess traditions now. First and foremost, the channel for the goddess, the woman that you are, needed to worship her own body as goddess. It was only when her own body was fully worshipped as goddess that she took time to do her body oils, to love herself as goddess, to see and to commune with Source in a very visceral way. That then she was empowered, she was filled with the energy of the magic of sacred union that she could then gift to a man or to a partner. This very real fact and foundation of the feminine, of Venus, is a remembrance for Libra, as it is easy to get lost in the waves of relationship, to lose ourself in relationship. As of course, all relationships are mirrors for ourselves, they are also the pathway back in. But we must turn into our own sacred heart to find that wholeness within ourselves. Now, when we are disconnected from our own self-love, we often seek to be completed and filled by a person outside of us. However, I love the words of Kelly Brogan here, that is buying eggs from a hardware store. If we are trying to seek unconditional love from another person, but we cannot offer that to ourselves, we are not going to be able to identify someone to have a mirror who can offer that to us. We may find ourselves unconsciously seeking validation and approval from those who are actually incapable of giving us what we need. And of course, this comes back to when we were children. Our parents were God, goddess. They were our everything. They provided for all of our needs, our life. They created our life. And they were also human, so they were not perfect. And so the ways where our own needs were not met by God, Goddess, Mom, Dad, as a child are the ways that we will seek resolution through repetition by seeking people who also play out a similar pattern as our parents. And whether this is frustrating partnership, or it is rejection, or it is the inability to find a partner or friends, whether it's the sister wound that keeps us in competition with other women or disconnected from those who can be the greatest supports for us, at the deepest level, this is really a reflection of our own sense of rejection, of the wounding of God, Goddess. It is our own disconnection from our connection, our communion with Source itself. And it's on a wider collective scale, it's important to acknowledge that as women, we share a common feminine wounding of seeking validation and approval from the patriarchy in order to be safe in the world. That is actually just a survival mechanism that is just built in to modern femininity, and that now we are being invited to heal. This manifests as the ways we contort ourselves and deny our needs or abandon our boundaries in order to be chosen by the system of patriarchy. When we are attempting to fill an emotional hunger, it's important to acknowledge that this is both our own childhood wounding as well as a collective process. To remember that inside, even if we have the power of choice of partner, friend, now, for many thousands of years, our ancestresses actually didn't have choice of who they were going to marry. They were literally passed from father to husband as a financial transaction. And although, what a blessing that is no longer the case for many of us with the privilege in in where we are right now. And many places in the world, that is still the situation. But regardless, we still carry a cellular memory of that lack of agency and the valuing of us as a financial transaction based on our beauty and fertility. And in order to heal that, Libra is the key because that is rooted in the people pleasing, in the peacemaker at all costs, right? But if we give away our voice and our truth in order to be the peacemaker, we are not the peacemaker anymore. There is no peace if there is not peace inside of you, inside of us. And we are the cycle breakers here. I would love to share a story from my own life this last week to illustrate this. Years and years and years and years of therapy with the people pleasing. Years and years of therapy. Actually, it's really funny. I'm visiting my family right now. I'm actually in my mom's office right now. She's a therapist. But I've been on my own therapeutic journey, healing my own mother and father wounds from my beautiful but very imperfect parents. And this beautiful but very imperfect culture we live in. And I'm extremely close to a man who is just my friend, and he and I just get closer and closer and closer. And he's a big dude. Like, he's literally like a big husky man. And we're always like cuddling, or like, we're just like putting our arms around each other. And sometimes he puts his arm around me and I'm like, oh my God, my neck. Like, or he'll like come up behind me and like hold me. And I'm like, my neck's like, ugh. And what I have identified, and this literally took me like years to identify, so we can really see how deep these patterns are with people pleasing, with shape-shifting, with feeling that we need to perform a certain way in order to receive love, is that I like just feel uncomfortable when he does that, and I won't always say anything about it. And I've become aware recently through deep therapy and medicine work, like the I am not speaking my truth because I don't want to hurt his feelings, which is so ridiculous. It's so silly. Like, he doesn't want to hurt me. He loves me. I love him. And when, like, it's not like he's doing anything on purpose. He's just leaning on me. But yet there's something inside of me that feels that I have to keep quiet in order to make someone else feel comfortable. So this is my particular, situation. But how many times in your life have you kept quiet in order to make someone else feel comfortable? In working with women for 16 years, I can tell you this is pretty much ubiquitous. This is pretty much universal. There's some place within us, even if it is deeply unconscious, where we do not speak the truth because we want to make other people feel comfortable. That is not the peacemaker. That is the people pleaser. And I became aware of this, and finally, like, we had like a whole like intervention around this thing. We had like a whole thing around this. And I expressed like, wow, sometimes like, you're just loving me, but it's like physically hurting me. And I noticed that I can't speak in that moment. And I realized that through my mass analysis, through my meta-analysis of this whole thing, what I really came to understand through it was that this is a larger pattern. While this is a very physical, very simple pattern, right? This is a larger pattern between me and men in the world. And when I don't speak my truth to men because I want to make them feel comfortable, I sacrifice myself, I abandon myself, I abandon my inner child, and therefore I don't feel safe with men because I'm not making myself feel safe, because I'm not speaking the truth, and therefore I'm not giving them an opportunity to meet my needs. I'm not giving them an opportunity to make me feel safe and make me feel comfortable. It is up to me. I am the source of this. However, in years past, I realized that unconsciously I've been projecting my own lack of capacity to love myself and speak up for my truth onto men. And then I've been judging them as unsafe. I've been judging them as not tending to my needs. And so I'm so grateful this situation arose with my friend, because it gave me a very tactical, practical opportunity to be like, hey, I need to start standing up for myself and speaking my truth, even if it makes me feel uncomfortable, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable. This is the only way I'm going to be able to love you. I'm going to be able to love men. I'm going to be able to love my people fully, because otherwise I'm not trustworthy. I'm not speaking my truth. I'm not trusting life. I'm not trusting myself. I'm not honoring myself. Instead, I'm abandoning myself, and then I'm feeling victimized by the world. This is such a perfect example. God, I love, of course, this is the way it always works, right? Like, this comes up right when Libra comes around. So grateful I could communicate this situation to you, and all the layers of complexity that arise in relationship. And as we close, let's remember that the reminder here, the remembrance here is everyone else is just you in disguise. Everyone else is just you in disguise. Everyone else, the whole world, the news, your people, your beloveds, your partner, your parents, they're just you in disguise. They're just here to teach us to love ourselves on a deeper level. And we can go right into source in order to do that. We can go straight to the source instead of seeking it on the external. And at the same time, our relationships will always be the perfect arena to come into deeper and deeper authenticity, to cultivate deeper and deeper our capacity for discernment, so that ultimately we can be in sacred union, hieros gamos, of the masculine and feminine within us, of the polarity of day and night, the polarity of yes and no, all of the opposites that are here to harmonize, to create the third sacred thing, to create the child, right? That is the sacred union of hieros gamos, creates the new thing, the new earth. So as we step into deeper relationship with Libra, with the peacemaker and partner inside of us, we are birthing a new world where we are balanced internally, with both our feminine gifts and also our strong spine and our inner masculine capacity to speak up for our truth, to stand strong in our boundaries so that we can fully love ourselves and others from our heart. Happy, happy, happy new moon in Libra. Happy Libra season. May it be a beautiful month of harmony and balance and relationship and remembrance. It all starts in here. Everyone else is just you in disguise. Blessed be, sister.